So they were already this clan of feral giants. And so Esau marries into this lineage, starts breeding with them. This feral giant tribe of sorcerers is how the text explained them.
The world keeps lying, but he won't retreat on his quest for truth. Yeah. Truth, quest for truth. They can't stop me, they can't block me. Moving through, got that fire, they can't block me. Quest for truth, breaking chains, making waves. That's what I do. When they hate, I create.
Welcome everyone. Tonight we are joined by Justin Brown, and we're going to be talking about his book, Epic of Esau. And this is a interesting book, to say the least. This conversation is going to be extremely interesting. But before we get started, I have a couple announcements for those of you out there that have enjoyed this network and you're already subscribed and you already hit the like button. So I have in the description, I have a link so that you can join my mailing list, because I am going to be in the next few weeks, actually this month and in February, or this coming month and February, I'll be doing meet and greets, one in Orlando and then one in Las Vegas. So if you're anywhere near either of those places, make sure to sign up for the mailing list, but also anywhere, because I'm going to be traveling to different places doing these meet and greets. But right now, those are the only two I have scheduled. Also, I'll be speaking at an event called Faithfluence in Owensboro, Kentucky. And if you're an influencer, or if you're just somebody that wants to come and see how you can help make a difference with influencing the people, we have to do our part to do that. Just like the world's doing their part to influence, we have to do our part to influence as well. And one more thing, tonight, our sponsor for this show, if you're in pain, you need to get a bottle of this, Nano X. It's very, I mean, it works. So let's put it this way. I wouldn't promote it if it didn't. It's the only pain cream that goes through all 7 layers of skin. No other pain cream does this. Out of all the pain creams I've ever used, this one is the one that works the most. And if you're in pain, this is something you need to check out. Links in the description. There's 2 promo codes in there. You can use one or the other. One's for free shipping, or the other one's for $8 off. So check it out. If you're in pain, try it out. I'm telling you, it works. There's been so many people that have emailed me thanking me for suggesting it. So thank you guys. And listen, tonight, you guys are going to enjoy this. I really think you're going to enjoy it. Make sure you go ahead and hit the subscribe, hit the like button. That way you don't have to worry about it near the end and worry about forgetting. Also hit that notification bell and share this out, guys. And so enjoy the show, enjoy the broadcast. Other than the biblical narrative of Esau coming out basically just cloaked in hair, I mean, to the point to where his brother even put a goat skin, I think it is, on his body to emulate his brother, which, I mean, there's hairy people. I know some hairy people out there, but not that hairy. I mean, that's got to be like, I mean, we're talking about a coat of hair. Talk about that process. Talk about the ancient texts. Like, what texts, you said the Enkidu and all of that reminded you of that. Talk about that process and just lead them down to, I guess, lead our audience down the path to where this makes sense to them if they haven't read your book.
Yeah, so when I first had that, aha moment with the Genesis 25:25, I was like, man, that sounds like a Sasquatch in our modern vernacular. So, like I said, I stumbled across the book of Jasher, and it says that Nimrod had built up jealousy and envy against Esau all of his days, and that he was the mighty hunter, the Gibor hunter, just like Esau. Esau was a Gibor hunter, a mighty hunter. And basically, it words it like Nimrod goes out and hunts this hairy beast of a man known as Esau. But Esau hides himself, and it says that he jumps out, and Nimrod is there with 2 of his other Gibborim, 2 mighty men, and that he cuts off Nimrod's head with a sword and fights the other 2 Gibborim to the death. And then that there was a hunting party, 100 yards or so out, heard the screams, and they come running. But it says that Esau, before he takes off running, that he takes the time to remove Nimrod's garments. And I was like, okay, what's so special about these garments? And it says that he runs home and hides the garments in his house, but then he goes into his brother's tent And there's where it ties into Genesis and dovetails with the trading of the birthright. And that was one of those stories to me, John, that never made sense.
Yeah.
You know,
And
for
that's
those
in the
that's
book
not
of
familiar,
Jasher, correct?
yeah, Jasher, and it ties right into Genesis, where Genesis trades the birthright. And when I was reading in Genesis, I was like, you know, your modern vernacular, your father's Donald Trump, you're next in line. The company business is going to be yours. All the money's going to be yours. The land, the real estate, everything is going to be yours. You're next in line. And you come in from trading stocks all day, and you see your younger brother sitting on the couch eating a bag of Doritos, and you're like, hey, I'm starving, man. Can I get some of those Doritos? And he's like, yeah, sure. Just sign over the company and everything that you're going to inherit. And he says, sure. What use is a birthright to me when I am dead? Take it. I was like, man, that makes no sense to me whatsoever. And the book of Genesis says that he comes in from the field exhausted. That's all it says. So if we take the book of Jasher and put that in there with it, well, I mean, yeah, he coming from the field exhausted, all right. I mean, he just killed the king. He's on the run. The king's guard and army's after him. He's a wanted man, probably sustained, you know, life-threatening injuries during this exchange. So this was kind of like allegorical, you know, like the soup was basically hide me, sustain me, give me life-saving care. And with that context, it makes a lot more sense, even his reply, because when Jacob says, you know, trade me your birthright, he says, what use is a birthright to me when I am dead? Take it.
Yeah.
So that even kind of fits the context of the story. And I was like, man, that's wild.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people, you know, we can debate if these are historical, true, factual, but what we can't debate is that this was the legends and the lore of the people of the time that wrote the stories.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah,
I
there's
think
a
it's
history
important to
there at
know
least.
these.
History there at the very least. Like that's what I tell people. It's like you don't have to take all this stuff as scripture, but it's literally the only other records or stories that we have of these moments, and it's hard not to at least take into account, right? I mean, it's wild as a researcher. People often like you didn't, you know, you're only using the Bible here. You're only supposed to use the Bible here, but you know, I find interest in looking at all the stories that are surrounding it. But you mentioned something in all of this, so there was a birthright thing, and Abraham already had it out. If you read other books, Abraham actually had a situation with Nimrod as well, to where Nimrod tried to, I guess, subjugate him and kill him, similar to how you see it happen for like Joseph or like Daniel, I guess, and other people like that. You know, like because he destroyed his father's idols, went out. So there probably was this animosity that had been building up over years, because Abraham was known as like the desert king. Like people feared Abraham actually, and I mean, at one point he killed nine at the Battle of the Kings. I think he killed like a bunch of Nephilim kings to get his brother back. So he wasn't a scrub. Let's put it that way. But when you look down to Esau and you see that match that took place, which I believe that it's possibly true, and especially since that's the legends that going around it. You mentioned the cloak, and I've done a lot of research on this cloak that was passed down from Adam. I mean, you see it going on throughout the whole Bible, even with like,
the time ecclesia, the end time believers, the end time church to come.
Kings, they wear certain cloaks today that are matching, that have them, to where those patriarchs would pass down their blessing. The whole family wealth would be passed on to one person as the boss of the entire family. This wasn't, you know, in America, everybody just scatters around, does their own thing, never really build anything purposefully. You know, the American dream, the American culture is basically the opposite of what it should be as a family. But talk a little bit about that, about this cloak, because I would say that probably at least 50% of the people listening have never heard of that.
Yeah, and I hadn't either. So that was my first question when I had stumbled across that story, because it says that, you know, he just killed the king, killed two possible giants, you know, they were referred to as Gibborim, to the death. And then he has this huge army coming after him, but he takes the time to steal these garments, and then even takes the time to hide them in his tent before seeking life-saving care. So I was like, well, what is up with these garments? What is so special about these garments? And once I had studied the Epic of Gilgamesh, with Gary Wayne, I thought that was just a mirrored image of the same story, because in that story you have this hairy quote unquote man that sounds just like Esau, and you have Gilgamesh, who a lot of historians align with Nimrod anyway, battling out. But in that version, Gilgamesh wins, and they become best friends and take off on all kinds of epic adventures together. So I kind of looked at it as, could that be the same story, but just their version of it, where their guy wins,
Mm-hmm.
But when I found those garments and got to looking, just like a chapter or so later, it gives you the answer in Jasher, and it says that that these were the supernatural garments from the garden of God, and it was the symbol of kingship and priesthood, and that it was passed down through the patriarch. And it said that Adam had it, he passed them on down. They went through Enoch, they went through Methuselah, Noah. It said that Noah had them crossing over the flood and had them on the ark with him. And then it says that that in Ham's going out, that Ham steals the garments and then gives them to his son Cush. And it says that Cush hides them. And it says that he has Nimrod, and it says that Nimrod was the child of his old age, whom he loved exceedingly, and he blessed him with the garments. And it says at the coming of age, at 20 years old, that Nimrod put on the garments. And it says, and at that point he became a Gibborim. So it kind of answers that question in Genesis that we see, where it says, Nimrod wasn't born a Gibborim. It says he becomes a Gibborim. So the ancient Jewish, legends and writings and lore, they attribute it to these garments. But going through this and studying that, I stumbled across Dr. Michael Heiser and his, the uncovering of thy father's nakedness. And that kind of tied into this story too. For those that's not familiar, in that story where Ham uncovers his father's nakedness, if you go into the Leviticus, I think it's chapter 17 or 18, but in there it says that, it has all these commandments, and it's all sexual commandments. Don't sleep with your brother's wife. That is his nakedness. And you shall not sleep, with all these other people. And it says that you shall not sleep with thy father's wife. It is the uncovering of thy father's nakedness. Your father's wife's nakedness is his nakedness. So Mike Heiser said, he believed that if you let Scripture interpret Scripture, what happened there was an incestuous act, that Ham slept with his mother. And that was an act of rebellion in the ancient world. And if you go through Absalom, when he ran off David, the first thing he done, he went and pitched a tent on top of David's house and went into all of David's concubines in the sight of all of Israel. Reuben, he slept with his father's concubines in an act of rebellion and dominance over the household. So this was something that you could see repeatedly done in Scripture. So it's not out of the question, I don't think, to have that same situation here. So, and the cursings also, just like the trading of the birthright, the curses never made sense to me. I was like, even if he, come in and your dad was passed out drunk, naked in the floor, and you looked at him, how's that your fault? Or even if you made a little comment about him, that's not your fault. And he didn't get cursed. His firstborn son, Canaan, was cursed. And chronologically, Canaan wasn't even born yet. So God his punishment always correlates to the crime. And it's always opposite of what you're trying to achieve. So even the punishment makes sense in this context, because he wanted to rule the family. He wanted everyone to serve him. But instead, his genealogy would be cursed, and they would serve instead of being served. And when it says that Noah recovered from his wine, we assume that's a day, like he wakes up, he's hungover. Well, it don't give you no time frame. It just says when he recovered from his wine. I postulate that it could have been a couple months down the road, once he drunk all the grapes. There was nothing left to drink, so he had to come off the wagon, basically go to AA. But once he realizes, he gets sober, he sees his wife's got a baby pump, and he hears about the rebellion. and they're going to name this child Canaan. So he says, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant to thy brothers, Shem and Japheth he shall be." And then you're like, well, how could he be Shem and Japheth's brother unless, okay, they got the same mother? Mm. So that's why he was a cursed lineage, because it was an incest lineage from the beginning. And I think those garments are in that story. It's just hidden in the original languages. It says in there, if you guys remember, that Shem and Japheth take a garment, place on their backs, and walk backwards and cover their father's nakedness. Well, the original languages, it has a definite article assigned to that garment. It doesn't say a garment. It says the garment. They took the garment and covered their father's nakedness. So even theologically, this makes sense, because this was basically the crown. This was the sign and symbol of kingship and priesthood and authority. So therefore, the brothers refused this rebellion and placed the crown back upon their father. So I thought that was really cool and interesting.
Yeah.
And going back to Genesis, I was like, well, let's go back to these garments and let's see if there's anything in here that I've missed or whatever. And it just says that God takes a canonate and covers their nakedness. And growing up, I was taught, this is the first sacrifice. It's a foreshadowing of Christ. Something had to die, shed blood to cover the sins of humanity. Well, I mean, the scripture doesn't say that. It's a beautiful picture, and I can see that theologically, but that's not what the scriptures say. It says that he takes a canonate, which is often translated to tunic, and he hilbishes their nakedness. And these are the same words and terms used for the priests. The priestly ephod was a canonate, and it was used to hilbish their nakedness. So I think there's kind of like some law first mentioning happening there, kind of pointing back, connecting these two dots. And Ezekiel 28, or I'm sorry, let me go back. And those Ginsburg Legends of the Jews talks about these garments too. And it says that they were the skins of the Nakash, the coverings of the Nakash. And I immediately thought of Ezekiel 28. It says every precious stone was your covering, beryl, onyx, topaz, jasper, onyx, and all this stuff. And so it's painting Satan in a priestly role. That's a carbon, it's a Polaroid picture of the priestly ephod. And then a verse or two later, it even says that he had a sanctuary and that he profaned his sanctuary. So I was like, well, that's his skins, that's his coverings right there. So I was like, well, what if at the rebellion at the garden, Satan was demoted, kicked out of his position, and his garments, his priestly garments, taken from him and given to Adam, to mankind. And all rabbis trace their beginnings to Adam. They say he was the first king and priest of creation. So I think that was what these garments were, being passed on down the line. And they're in the Bible several times. I mean, I think they're there with Noah. We have them with Nimrod. Later, we have the same terminology with Joseph, because you remember it says Cush, he had Nimrod. Nimrod was the child of his old age, whom he loved exceedingly, and he gave him these garments. It says the same thing about Joseph. It says Joseph was the child of Israel's old age, whom he loved exceedingly. And what does he give him? He gives him a coat of many colors. And then once he puts on this coat of many colors, all kinds of supernatural stuff starts happening. He starts having dreams and visions, and he says that the wheat of the field bow before me. The stars of heaven bow before me. And you, my brothers, bow before me and shall serve me. And they basically rip it off of him, drench it in blood, and hand it back to their father and trade him off to Egypt. Elijah, he gets taken up in a whirlwind, leaves this mantle, this canonate, and Elijah takes it, slaps the Jordan River, and it parts so he can walk on dry land. I think that's a good possibility for them being there also. And I think Christ, when he returns in Revelation, it says that he has this beautiful garment, and it says that blood is stained up to the bridle. I think that's kind of mirroring and foreshadowing Joseph, because the Jewish people believed in two messiahs, Josiah ben Joseph and the conquering king. So I think that they're using that imagery there to show his people that are still stiff necked and not accepting him as the Messiah. Hey, I have the garments of the Josiah ben Joseph, and they're soaked in blood, just like the one you believe in. And on the thigh is written King of Kings and Lord of Hosts. Uh, so I think, yeah, we see these garments a lot of times in the Bible. It's just kind of lost to us through cultural stories and the original languages, John.
Absolutely, man. That's pretty close. Actually, like, the same conclusion I came to in a broadcast I did on the Midnight Ride. I don't know how many years ago, but yeah, dude, there's a lot there that it's easy to skim over all those things and not really think about that. But it's definitely clear that there was something about these mantles, these garments that bring power. And I think, like you said, going back to the garden, God gave them these things to cover their nakedness, to cover their shame. And what does that mean to cover that? What does it mean to be, I guess, to keep that shame from going outward or whatever? I don't know, but like there seems to be something there. Like you said, Nimrod put it on and became a Gibberim, became a mighty man. And so yeah, there's a lot to that. So now going from that to the Epic of Gilgamesh, for people who aren't familiar with the Epic of Gilgamesh, it's an ancient text, one of the most ancient. There's probably like Epic of Lugalbande that may be a little bit older, and then a couple like ancient Assyrian texts or whatever. But like overall, this is one of the oldest stories of these quote unquote giants that were roaming around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And some of the things that stood out to me in that story was, it says that Enkidu was this wild man, basically. You take the descriptions of him, it's what we today, I believe, would call a Bigfoot. If you've seen somebody, this big beastly of a man, 7, 8 foot tall, covered in hair from head to toe out in the woods, you'd say that's a Bigfoot or that's a Sasquatch. But it says that Nimrod was the mighty man, and that basically I kind of view him as like Gaston. If you're familiar with the Beauty and the Beast story, he
Right.
was this, male chauvinist king, king of kings and masterful hunter, and no one could outbest him. And it says that basically the people were getting tired of him, and that they were praying to the gods, for some kind of relief, like either he'd be taken down a notch or two or defeated, but they wanted, to be free of this terror known as Gilgamesh, and that the gods answered, and that they went to Enki, who a lot of people align with the Nakash anyway, the Hasatan, and it says that Enki makes Enkidu, and that's what his name means, the one who Enki made. But it says that he made him in the image of Samquain, and Samquain was a fertility god in that Mesopotamia region, and he was a fertility god, and he was covered in hair from head to toe. And he was also known as the god of the cattle. And it says his hair was long and matted. So that's where he got his hair from, was this fertility god. And that this trapper hears about this beast out in the woods and goes out to try to find him, and he ends up encountering him, and then he's scared to death. He don't even want to try to fight this thing. And he goes back and tells Gilgamesh. Well, Gilgamesh tells him to go to the temple of Anana and take a temple prostitute with him, and says that to have her remove her clothes and to seduce this wild man and to sleep with him for 7 days. And it says that, but on the seventh day to remove herself from him, and that the wilderness would reject him, and he would be forced to, come into the city. And so they do all the things that Gilgamesh told them. And sure enough, he goes back to the wilderness after meeting the temple harlot, and he can no longer run with the animals. It says that the animals run from him. They don't want nothing to do with him. He smells funny, and that his speed that he used to have is not even there. And it makes an interesting comment in that epic. It says that when he tried to run with the animals, it was though his body was bound by a cord. That's kind of like, witchcraft terminology. You bind something. Even Jesus said, to plunder a strong man and rob his home, then you must first bind the strong man. So they basically occult ritual restrained and hurt this Enkidu, kind of like Samson. A woman, once again, uh, took his symbol of power and weakened him for the adversary. So just seeing all those little correlations was really cool to me, because it sent me down the path of finding all these same characteristics, what we call the Bigfoot. And I found it everywhere. John, we were kind of talking pre-roll. It's Europe, they call it the woodwose. There's so many fertility gods that are covered in hair. Faunus, Sylvanus, satyrs, Pan, so many of these, what the Bible, I think, called hairy goat demons. And so I think that, they may call it different names, but it's the same thing that we find over and over and over again. And then so when I started looking in the Bible, I found that Esau wasn't the only one. According to the Jewish legends and lore, and like I said, we can debate, if this is real, factual, but I mean, we can't debate this is what they believed at the time. But it said that, I'm trying to think of his name, Rashi, the medieval rabbi, he done a translation on the Torah and the Targums and Talmud and stuff, and he was saying that that they believed that Cain's marking was that he was covered in hair. Mm-hmm. And he said that's why he was so afraid that he was going to be killed, because he looked like this hairy beast. And that they say in I think it's the Targums, it says that Lamech, I'm sorry, I had a brain fart there. Lamech, from the Bible, he's that guy that's first mentioned to have multiple wives and all that kind of stuff. But it says in there in Genesis that one day he just comes in and he's distraught and he says, if Cain was cursed, I'm going to be cursed 70 times 70, because I killed a man and in my anger killed a youth. Well, the Talmud, or the Targums, I'm sorry, the Targums kind of fill in the gap of that story, and they say that in his old age, Lamech was going blind, and that his youngest son, Tubal-Cain, would assist him in hunting and tell him where to point his bow. And it says that one day they're hunting, and his son spots this beast and tells his father where to shoot, and they shoot it, and then they drop it, and they walk up to it. And once they got close enough, Lamech could see, and he immediately lamented and tore his clothes and said that you have made me kill my ancestor, Cain. And then so out of anger, because he knew the curse and that what his son had done, he turned around and killed his son for the mistake. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Like I said, I ain't saying thus saith the Lord here, but it kind of fills in gaps and ties a lot of stuff together.
Absolutely. It makes sense in a very, very big way. There's a lot there, man, that people that I would say most people skim over, but there's definitely a lot there. All of these little references to the forgiveness aspect of Lamech. I mean, that's something that I didn't realize in the Targums that talk more about that. So that's really, really interesting to me. And I wonder, you think back to how big people were back then, probably like they were strong people, I would imagine. Like, time, people think that we evolved to be greater over time, but I think that there's pretty clear representation that humans back then were much bigger, stronger, smarter than we are now. And Isaac, Jacob, Esau's brother, was even able to wrestle with God, with God is what it says in the Bible. He wrestled with him and was able to continue wrestling for a very, very long time. And I do jujitsu like all the time, and I'll tell you right now that to be able to wrestle with somebody for that long of a period of time is not easy. I mean, I can, like, me and my friends will do like 20-minute rounds, and by the time it's all said and done, we're very, very exhausted, and then the next day our bodies are broken. But this persisted through the night, right? And then to the point to where God was like, all right, I'm done with this. Boom, and cripples his thigh. And he's like, all right, I'm done. It's over with. I'm going to snap your leg. I can imagine like him putting him in a heel hook or something, just being like, whatever, and being done with the whole thing. But it's crazy to me to think about that, and then to think about Esau. He was even a bigger brute that Jacob was scared of. He was scared of Esau when they went to meet him again on the field, where he told his wives and his children to stay back, and he was going to go meet him. And the fact that when you talk about this is something that is really intriguing to me, because I don't believe that there's very many people, if any, that talk about the aspect of that, the mark, whatever that mark was, that would cause people to want to kill him. I mean, it makes perfect sense that hunters, they love going hunting animals, and so being a big hairy beast is a great representation of that type of mentality to want to kill him. Because otherwise, I mean, we see people with marks all the time. We see people with scars on their head. We see people with weird, crazy tattoos all over them. I mean, it doesn't even matter, The people are marking themselves all over the place, but there's no particular mark that's like, I'm going to kill that guy. That's a person we should kill. But or a mark that says that's a person we shouldn't kill is actually what it's saying there. A person we shouldn't kill this person because they have this mark. But that totally makes sense. It totally makes sense how he would accidentally kill Esau. And the weird thing about this too, there's like an incestual thing with this, like you were talking about with Noah. And I'm not saying that Esau had an incestual relationship, but this mark could have been passed down through that. And then you see Lot, when he is expelled from Sodom, when he leaves Sodom, his daughters, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they mate with him, and then like their ancestors, like the Horites and all these things that you hear about, like satyrs and stuff that are in the wilderness. So that's really, really strange to me.
Yeah. And honestly, that kind of ties in what you were talking about. What I wanted to talk about next was a lot of people in my area, especially East Tennessee, when you bring up Esau, they want to say, oh, well, he just had a good beard, or that was poetic language, or whatever. But it's like you had mentioned earlier, they had to kill a goat and wrap it around him like a blanket to fool their blind father. I mean, nobody's going to mistake a person when they rub a goat. So he was literally that hairy. And we see those garments again in that deception of Jacob and Rebekah, and we look over it. But once you have the eyes to see it, you start seeing these things. It says that once she gets him ready before she sends him into the tent, it's like the cherry on top. It says that she goes into Esau's tent and takes his special garment and places it upon Jacob. And that he goes in and they do the deception or whatever. Esau finds out about the fix, and he threatens to kill his brother. And the Ginsburg Legends of the Jews, it had another little caveat added in there. It said that when he threatened to kill his brother, he said, I will kill my brother with neither sword nor bow. He said, but I will bite his neck and drain him of his blood until he is dead. So it kind of has like this whole vampiristic kind of feel to it. And after this, I think this is basically when Esau goes into full rebellion. He's like, okay, I know I wasn't the poster child, but now ends up screwed me over, so I'm just going to do what I want. And it says that he takes 3 wives, and 2 of them were Horites and Hivites. And you had mentioned that spun from an incestuous relationship also. And thanks to people like Gary Wayne diving through the genealogies, we know that this was a giant clan, both of them. They were known giant clans. And his father-in-law, listed in Genesis, it says that his father-in-law was Seir, and that he reigned from the land of Mount Seir. And when you go into the etymology of that word, that means hairy. So they were already this clan of feral giants, basically. And so Esau marries into this lineage, starts breeding with them. So you already have these feral giants, as they're described. Then you have this hairy beast of a man known as Esau interbreeding with them. I mean, you have a high likelihood for some strange pups. When you follow genealogies of that, there's where you get Amalek. And then he birthed this race of giants known as the Amalekites. And once again, etymology, when you go to the meaning of that name, it means the blood lickers. So it kind of ties into that comment where Esau, was saying he was going to drain his brother. He's going to bite his brother's neck and drain him of blood till he was dead. From his loins is birthed the Amalekites, whose name means the blood lickers. And
bunch of
many
inbred vampires.
Jewish,
It sounds like a bunch of inbred
yeah,
vampires. Yeah.
yeah. And when you go to Rashi, uh, Josephus, and Ginsburg, all these people talk about how the Amalekites were known shapeshifters and sorcerers. And it says in Rashi's writings, that's why the Amalekites were the only tribe or race that God commanded to kill every man, woman, child, and animal, because they were known shapeshifters and that they would shift into animals to try to evade capture or death. And that's why he told them to do that. And these were the people, according to the Bible, was the first people group that interacted with God's chosen people in the Exodus wanderings. And it says that basically they were tormenting them, picking them off from behind, kind of like this, like ghosts, or militia type warfare. And that finally it boils to a head, and that they have a battle. And that's that famous battle where Moses has to stand on the mountain with the supernatural rod of wonder over his head. And it says that only when he holds the rod over his head were they able to defeat the Amalekites. But when he would tire and lower it, they would start to lose the fight. So it's kind of like they needed supernatural aid to overcome this sorcery, this feral giant tribe of sorcerers is how the text explained them. And so I tell people it's kind of like, the text doesn't say this, I'm reading into it a little bit, but it's kind of like if Moses had to be on one mountain with this, with the aid of God and this rod of wonder, and the valley was the battle. Well, who's to say on the other side, on the other mountain, was the high priest of the Amalekites? And it was kind of like this, Game of Thrones sorcery type thing going on, like in the spiritual realm on the other side. But in the wilderness wanderings, that's where you get a lot of your do not do this, and do not do that, and your rules, laws, regulations. I tell people you don't get a rule, law, or regulation unless someone is breaking those said rules, right? So I think it's kind of telling to the people that they were encountering and mimicking in their wilderness wanderings, and who we know from the biblical text that was the Amalekites. So what does it say? The book of Isaiah says that you got to go to the Septuagint, but it says the wild men, the satyrs, will dance in the wilderness and the desolate cities. And then in their laws and stuff God gives them, he says, no longer will you sacrifice to hairy goat demons. So the description of these people that I'm just talking about, I mean, it fits their description, I think.
Yeah.
And it says, no longer will you pass your children to the fires of Molech. We know that they sacrifice children. It says, no longer will you seek necromancers or sorcerers. We know that they were sorcerers and necromancers. No longer will you drink the blood, the life forces in the blood. Their name means blood lickers. So I think all those things that we've seen that God commanded his people not to do was because they had witnessed these Amalekites and what they were doing, and they were trying to mimic them. So
Yeah.
God had to move in and be like, no, we ain't about that over here. We ain't about that life.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I mean, you look at today, so sorcery they've been trying to keep it under wraps for a long time, but I think then in the last century or so, it's been the source for most of our kingdoms in the world. Sorcerers. I mean, everybody I've talked to that even works in technology, they'll mention that there are rituals involved in being able to receive this information. Even Tesla spoke of receiving this information from the Mahat, the prana. And so I think God too was like trying to keep people from rediscovering the things that destroyed them, because these demons that they're launching to, these necromancers that are encountering these demons and speaking through this, there's a constant want for these demons to come back and be able to be manifested here in the world. And so I think that most of the demons do torment people and work against mankind, the Bible says. But there's something more to what they want other than just tormenting people. They actually want technology to reach a point to where either they're able to manifest again, or their fathers who are chained are able to manifest, whatever it is. But there's something with this pull from the demonic that causes people to stumble in a major way. And I do think that a lot of their reason is just because God didn't want them doing the same thing that happened in Babylon, because obviously Babylon was something great. It was something even bigger than what we have going on at this very moment, and I think God will eventually disperse it. But they were building a tower, and of course, if you read the book of Jasher and other books, it seems like it's more than just a tower. It's something that they believe that they can reach into the heavens with and kill the Most High God with, at least according to the book of Jasher. And in Genesis, it's like, at this point, anything they set their mind to do, they're going to be able to do. And he didn't say probably, he just said they would be able to do anything that they want to do. And we're kind of there now, man. I mean, if you think about it, we're there now. Anything you can imagine to create, there is a way to do it. There's a technology, there's something out there to be able to make that happen. Now you have to be smart enough to put it together or whatever, but like anything you can imagine is possible right now.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's another Tower of Babel when they want to return to when the gods walked amongst men. I think there's a good little, what's the word I'm looking for? Elbow rub or blinking of the eye to that Tower of Babel in that Ghostbuster movie. You remember that tall building in the middle of Manhattan?
Mm-hmm.
Dozer, the destroyer, and opening up the portal to the other world.
Yeah.
I always thought that was a modern Tower of Babel they were talking about.
Yeah. What is the nail in the coffin for all this for you? Like, out of all of the things that you've researched and all this, what's the thing that was like, okay, like I feel like I got to write this book. I'm really onto that.
Yeah, because once I started finding all those, stories, and like I'd said, they were like missing puzzle pieces. They filled in all the gaps, in the biblical narrative. And I think that's because I tell people, a lot of these texts were written, looking back. So just like Genesis 6, you get this little blurb. And to us, it's like, man, that's a pretty big deal. I need some more context on that. Well, the writers of that time, they're like, hey, there's no reason to theoretically beat a dead horse. Everybody knows about Genesis 6. Everybody's heard of the scroll of Enoch, or the oral story of Enoch and the giants. And everybody knows this. We don't need to beat a dead horse. So they just give that little blurb. Well, us thousands of years later, we don't know these oral traditions and stories and legends. We don't have the scrolls that were floating around that they were reading. Because we know Jesus quoted from Enoch, his brother Jude quoted from Enoch, Peter directly quotes from Enoch. So, and the book of Jasher is mentioned in First Chronicles and the book of Kings, when it's talking about where the sun stood still for Joshua. It says, are these things not recorded in the book of Yashar? So there's lots of things that are vague in our scripture because there's other scrolls and there's other legends and stuff talking about them. So the writers at that time were like, everybody's familiar with it. We don't need to go into great detail. So I think it was really cool to go back through and discover these other oral legends and traditions, and the legends of the Jews and Jasher and Jubilees and all these other books, because they were, man, it was just little missing puzzle pieces that fit right into the biblical narrative perfectly. And so I'm the type of person, I mean, I try to keep my discernment about me, but I know how to eat chicken, man. I'm not going to throw away a basket of chicken just because there's some bones in it. No, I'm going to eat the meat and throw the bone over my shoulder. So long as it doesn't contradict scripture or the story of Christ and salvation, I'm willing to take those and see if they fit into the biblical narrative. And it was like a treasure hunt, man. I was excited to find all these things and put them together and see how they thought back then. Like I'd said many times, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent is besides the point. It's that they were sharing these stories. They believed these stories. So therefore it influenced their writings. So if we want to get a proper understanding of this ancient book, we need to get in the mindset of the ancient people who wrote it and who it was written to. So, but as I was finding all these, and it just kept answering all these other ambiguous questions in the text, I'm like, man, there has to be something to this. And like I said, this little theory of mine is the only thing that put a pretty red bow on Bigfoot for me, because a lot of people are hardliners. They're like, oh, it's flesh and blood, or no, it's not. It's all spiritual. I'm a believer that 90% of the time, it's not, the answer is not this and the answer is not that. It's a mixture of this and that 90% of the time. And I think my theory answers both sides of it. Are they flesh and blood? Yes, they used to be. The ancients called them feral giants. We call them Sasquatch today.
They
Is
might
there a
still
remnant
be.
left
They might
over?
still be, man. They might still be physical. I mean, if you're into necromancy and all that, there's no telling what they're capable of at this point.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Is it a possibility that there's a remnant left physically? Yeah, I believe so. They were known cave dwellers. We've explored like 2 or 3% of the world's cave systems, and there's people saying that it's like a highway. It connects, globally. And people want to say, well, if he was real, we would have caught one by now, or we'd have killed one by now, or seen one dead in the woods. Where's the bones? And I try to remind those people of the panda. The panda, there was legends and lore and stories about these white bears in China for thousands of years. But everybody said, oh, that's a legend. Oh, that's mythology. Parents tell their kids that to keep them out of the woods so they don't wander too far from home. They treated the panda just like we do Bigfoot today. But the panda was only discovered like in the last 100 years.
Yeah.
And pandas are dumb creatures, man. They're cute, but they're dumb. So if a dumb creature can avoid being captured, seen, or killed for thousands of years, I don't think it's out of the question to say a humanoid type being, the ultimate hunter, the mighty hunter who navigates cave systems of an ancient bloodline and intelligence, can avoid being captured, seen, or killed. I don't think that's too far fetched. But the other side, the spiritual side, if we take the book of Enoch, it says that these hybrid races, their spirits were cursed to remain and torment mankind. So I think it's not out of the question to assume that would these spirits not want to manifest in a familiar form that commanded respect and fear from the people of their time? And with all the woo, the UFOs, the orbs, the mind speak, the portals, all that kind of stuff, well, their lineages were known sorcerers and shapeshifters. So, I mean, I think the stuff that I found and kind of put together here in this book answers both sides of the fence and ties them both together.
I think so too. I think you've done a really good job on it. I'll tell you the truth. I was skeptical before I read it. I'm like, I don't know what he's putting together here. Like, let's see, because I knew that there were ties to things, but like, I was like, how many ties are there really? But after I read it, I was actually really impressed. And I want to tell you that I'm very impressed by your book. In a big way. And today, looking at all of the things that are coming about the earth, I think the timing's impeccable, by the way. Like I said, back in 2010 and even before that, I mean, there's people that are long before us that have been talking about these things, and almost every scholar today, everybody that we might think is just amazing today, really are, we're researchers. We research out the information that people before us have come out, and then with all of that research, you're able to build upon that and be able to come up with things that make sense. And so we have to be thankful for all of those people that came before us too. But man, you've done a great job. You've been able to put together things that I don't know that I've heard anybody put it together and wrap it together about this in the way that you did. So congratulations on that, first off. Second off, I'm going to put the link in the description, but tell people how they can find you.
Oh, well, thank you, John. I appreciate it, man. And like I said, I grew up and cut my conspiracy teeth on people like you. So for you to say that, man, that makes my heart smile. So thank you, man. But yeah, man, if you enjoy this kind of stuff that me and John get into, I'm in the same vein, guys. It's just, you get it in a Southern drawl and maybe a little different perspective, but, you can find my show. It's called Prometheus Lens Podcast, anywhere you can consume content. Got a brand new website, PrometheusLensPodcast.com. You can go there and sign up for a newsletter. it connects all my social medias. Everything you need is on that website. If you sign up for the newsletter, you get a 30-day ad-free listening experience on the show, and you get like a 3 or 4 chapter sampling of the book. You can get an autographed copy on the website directly from me, or you can go to Amazon and get it. It's the Epic of Esau, Birthright, and Seed War. It's $20 on Amazon, 10 for the digital, and it's also out on Audible right now. So if you guys can't read or don't want to read, hey, no judgments. I will read it to you.
There you go, man. Yeah, and like I said, guys, there's a link in the description. Check it out. I don't think you'll be disappointed at all. But thank you so much, Justin, for coming on. And guys, listen, pound that like button, pound that subscribe button, and make sure you ever so gently snip the little bell there, because that way you'll hear everything that we have come out. For some reason, if you don't do that, you might not even hear from me for a year, and then you'll stumble across me and be like, oh, I forgot all about it. And that's just the way it works. I have that happen all the time. So hit that notification bell, and thank you so much, guys, and we'll see you next time.
The world keeps lying, but he won't retreat on his quest for truth. Yeah. Truth, quest for truth. They can't stop me, they can't block me. Moving through, got that fire, they can't block me. Quest for truth, breaking chains, making waves.